Welcome to week 6 of MPAI 600 here at Georgetown University's Applied Intelligence program. Uh, just start off with announcements. Paper 2 is due now, probably already passed by the time you view this. So I should have those. It might take me a little bit longer. I want to have it done in a week, but maybe a week and a half due to TDY this week. So it might be a little bit delayed, but I just want to give you a heads up on that. The Zoom session. I think we had great Zoom session this past week. Well done, all the groups that did brief, and I think they have a good idea of what's going forward. The one thing I will say is I will try and put out a short course on how to do PowerPoint slides, and I don't want to take away from anything that the groups did, but I think just a lot of people use too many words, too many verbiage. They don't know how to use PowerPoint very well. And I'm not just talking about people in this class. I'm talking about across the entire spectrum. People don't know how to use PowerPoint well, and I just might toss out a course that might help you guys maximize the use of slide visuals in your presentation. So current events, Russian interference. There's more investigations coming on about Russian interference in our 2016 election and connections between the Trump administration and all those things. I think a lot of it gets convoluted on what I think is the real interference and what's relevant to this course back in 2016. What was the crux of the Russian interference was the Russian military intelligence hacking into the Democratic National Committee and John Podesta's email to weaponize the information to the detriment of the Clinton campaign. There's a lot of information out there that's salacious, a lot of information about taxes and even Facebook ads, how much the money Russia has invested in Facebook and Twitter bots and those things. I think that's a little extraneous. What is the center point is how they illegally, for our sake and our domestic law, broke in to steal files and how they distributed those files in WikiLeaks so that you thought all sorts of things in Clinton and you drove the news cycles. And I don't want to get into politics here, but I do believe that had a detrimental effect on the Clinton campaign as far as the election occurred. And I bring that up because that's going to be the way of cyber intrusions from here on in. There was a misnomer at the time that cyber would, when the Russians were trying to access the DNC networks, that they were just doing it for collection and for intelligence value. What they didn't realize is that they were using it to undermine a brand, and the brand of the Clinton campaign, and that it was critical to a critical point from cyber operations going forward. And let me give you an example here. Romaine lettuce, right? There was a lot of talk about romaine lettuce about being an issue for the last year or so. And, maybe romaine lettuce sales were hurt by a little bit. Then the CDC came out and said, don't eat romaine lettuce because it could be poisonous. And romaine lettuce sales were hurt a lot more, right? People took romaine lettuce off the shelves for a bit. But romaine lettuce is back in our, I just ate romaine lettuce just today. So sales haven't suffered a little bit. But I can tell you what will destroy the romaine lettuce industry. If an insider hacked into the CEO of the romaine lettuce company and in an email said, I wouldn't feed romaine lettuce to my kids, I don't want to kill them. Whether that email was taken out of context or not is, debatable. But if that email got out, I can tell you romaine lettuce sales would be killed permanently. And that's what I think the threat is going forward. It's insider information, which has a lot of credibility, being hacked into and weaponized to undermine your brand. And that's what the Russians did in our election, at least for one side of our election. that's what I think future businesses are going to be faced with going forward. So as Intel and cyber professionals, that's something to just keep in the back of your mind. And I'll just give you one more example that's very relevant to you. If for some reason an adjunct faculty email was distributed that said, "Wow, I would never send my kids to Georgetown School of Continuing Studies Applied Intelligence. What a waste of money." If that email was suddenly hacked and then distributed out to various websites, I don't think you would be in this course, because that would have a lot of resonance with you that an insider information would speak so badly about their own brand. So that's just, again, keep in mind as we're going forward. And by the way, I do think this is a very good value. This course and this program is a good value, and I do think that students tend to get a lot out of this program. Just FYI. But yeah, just think about that going forward for cyber operations, and Intel insider threat, and those types of issues. So review of week 5. So we looked at terrorism and the counterterrorism and the post 9/11 counterterrorism case studies. And one thing that always leaps out, and we talked about this at a couple of the reviews or the Zoom sessions, is when does radicalization get monitored further? What is the criteria triage that says this person deserves further scrutiny than that person? If I were to just passively view Anwar al-Awlaki's various YouTube pages from my house, should I deserve scrutiny for that? Well, from a constitutional perspective, I'm just engaging in free speech. And from a logistical perspective, there's about 200,000 people that look at Anwar al-Awlaki's various websites or subscribe or passively viewing his various websites. So you can't monitor all those people. What about if I like, how you can like on YouTube or like on Facebook one of Anwar al-Awlaki's or ISIS's webpage? Then do I deserve further scrutiny? What happens if I interact just like Nadal Hassan did with Anwar al-Awlaki, not just passively viewing, but total email interaction? Do I then deserve further scrutiny? Possibly, but we're still talking about thousands, tens of thousands of people. So the question is, when does radicalization get further monitored? And then I could also guarantee you the standard should be the same for ISIS. It should be the same for ISIS and for Al-Qaeda as it is for right-wing extremists, but it's not the same. Let's be realistic. If in Charlottesville in 2017, if instead of saying Jews, will not replace us, and they instead of having Confederate flags, they had ISIS flags, and instead they were saying Allah Akbar. Let's face it, it would be considered terrorism. It probably wouldn't have had they probably wouldn't be getting a license to protest to begin with, and even if they did, you'd be very, let's just say there would be a lot more scrutiny and a lot more radicalization on that. Because it's right-wing extremism, I think there was a lot less scrutiny, and I would encourage you, I didn't assign this, to watch the PBS Frontline Documenting Hate, which talks about Charlottesville and talks about the intelligence failures that this journalist was able to pick up, but apparently our state fusion centers and all our other right-wing ideology or right-wing extremist federal agencies were not able to do so. So just, again, ask the question, when does radicalization get further scrutiny? What do we do for people on the radar? This was brought up again on one of the Adobe or Zoom sessions. So the Boston Marathon bombers were on the radar. They were on watch lists. The Orlando shooter in 2016, he was on the radar screen. The EU folks in the Baklan Theater attack in 2015, they were known to authority figures. But again, there couldn't be anything about it because what do you do? All right, you know them, but they haven't committed a crime, so they can be detained. So I call it minding the gap. What do you do about the gap between people who are known and people who are, but there's not enough to arrest or detain them? And that's going to be one of your questions going forward to think about, as well as a question on your paper. Do we have the appropriate funding structures and people? Do we need more people? Do we need more authorities to go after not just these large-scale 9/11 like large plots, but these smaller entities that are out there? Do we need thousands of FBI agents or thousands more to look at people who are radicalized in one level or another? Do we want that? Do we want to turn into a police state? Those are the questions to ask going forward. And then, there's something to be said about, should we just accept this? In a free society with free access to guns, in the United States anyway, are we going to always have the Orlando shooter or the Charleston shooter or the attacks in New York or even the Boston Marathon? Can we just almost accept that is going to be a part of our society going forward? I will let you decide on that, but I can guarantee you, if you're going to say that, you got to have some very good language to back that up. You don't want to be in front of Congress saying, Boston Marathon, SHIT happens. You don't want to say that. You want to be very clear and understanding that, yes, there's certain restrictions you have, and yes, there is a gap here. So again, those are some key takeaways from week 5, as well as just counterterrorism in general as we move forward, as we move from these large-scale lone 9/11-like attacks to these more small-scale single-shooter lone wolves going forward. Okay, week 6, criminal intelligence analysis. So I'm going to throw over the lecture to our program director, Dr. Lemieux. He is going to talk about, in his expertise is policing and intelligence-led policing and criminal intelligence. So he's going to provide his insights there. Some key points, again, to look at. What led to the decrease in crime from the 1980s, late 80s, 90s to 2000s? And you'll see in the readings how crime has pretty much, it's one of our great miracles, I would say, that crime has just decreased so significantly. And many people will say it's because policing got better. And policing got better. They used CompStat, which is a program to hold accountability among various police precincts, and better policing led to the decrease in crime. I'll let you decide, but other people have said demographics. The baby boomers aged out of being in that prime area where you commit crimes between 18 and 29 years old. That led to a partial decrease. Others said abortion. I don't know if you want to agree with this, but this is what Freakonomics' argument is, that abortion became available in the 70s, and the people that would commit crimes in the 80s and 90s were aborted. I don't know if that's, again, I don't want to go pro-life, pro-choice in this class, but that's one theory. Other theories, lead. Lead has decreased. There used to be lead in paint. There used to be lead in water, and that has decreased, and that may have led to a decrease in crime. But think about those factors as you're going through this week's reading. And then we talk about law enforcement technologies. We talked about Boston Marathon in week 5, the intelligence failure. What we're going to look at are the technologies, and there's a documentary about those technologies that were used to capture the Boston Marathon attackers, and ask, can these be replicated to combat other crime? Not necessarily, these high-profile crimes, but other more or less dense issues. So that's covers for week 6. If there's issues or problems, please let me know, and I look forward to your discussion.